Hi, everyone. It's Rich Sheffer, and I'm joined here with Charles KIRKLAND. Charles is master of all internet marketing. There's not a guy that he doesn't know or a woman that he doesn't know. Anytime I talk about anything going on online, he's like, oh, yeah, I know about that. Did something about that, like used that a couple weeks ago. So Charles is one of those in-the-know guys that I am constantly texting, calling, FaceTiming, Zooming to find out what's the latest, what's the greatest, what's the best tactic, what's the best strategy for any specific online endeavor. And so I'm really excited to have Charles here. And so Charles, say hello and tell us what you got to share with us.
Hey, how's it going? Well, today we've got an exciting tip. Quite often we see people creating lead magnets. They're like, hey, this is my one-page checklist. And guess what? It does get a lot of opt-ins. Opt-ins are great. But how do you know that you're dealing with someone who's actually going to be intellectually stimulated by your content? One of the things that we've done is we skip the one-page checklist and we combine that with what we call a book list. Someone who's going to opt in and say, hey, give me the top 10 books on culture, strategy, marketing, sales, insert name of niche. Those are going to be the people who are saying, I would like to read about this. I'm going to invest time to read. Readers are always buyers. And that's what we found. If you're going to read a book, these are usually the highest value people we can get. But the problem is, how do we do this? We could do a book summary, but I like book summaries, but I want them to read the book. And we're going to take this little book list, put it on 1 to 2 pages, quick little bio. Here are the books I suggest. These are why I suggest these books. And they do extremely well for a couple of reasons. One, they appeal to an intellectual buyer. They appeal to readers. They appeal to the, I'm a chihuahua on crack and I can only take 1 page at a time. So we can go into virtually any niche with zero experience, zero, I need to create a product, build a book list, just go to Amazon, get the top 10 books, put them on a checklist, and you're good to go. So let's go ahead and look at this. Now, the beauty of this is it is dirt cheap to advertise in Facebook for a book list. If you want to say, hey, sign up for my webinar, great. 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe $100 per lead. If you do a checklist, you can get cheaper leads. And if you do a book list, you just filter out to just the readers.
Right. And so let me just jump in here for a second, Charles. So really what you're saying is that the ideal bait for any kind of lead generation program is to use a book list. 1, because it gets the highest quality of opt-ins. 2, because it's easy and fast and cheap to actually create. And that ultimately, you have those 2 things. Now you're talking about that it's actually cheaper to advertise and get, the lead for. And that it also positions you, whoever the you is that's giving this book list away, because obviously the implication is that you've read more than just those books and that these are the best in that field. And so when you were talking about culture, strategy, or any of those, you were talking about, like, if you were going after some kind of entrepreneur, then those would be the appropriate book list. If you're going after internet marketing, maybe it's the 10 must-read, books that will ignite your business or whatever, right? So I just wanted to clarify in case someone wasn't pasting what you were saying. So go on.
So with the book list, you get the best of both worlds. Simple, easy, fast, and we have the Oprah effect, which is Charles is now standing on the mountain and I'm handing down the tablet. These are the best books in the field. I'm saving you time. Would you also like to opt in for my webinar? Click a link, join my webinar. Would you like to buy my product? Would you like to make some other monetary transaction with me? And we find that is the fastest way to get leads without having spend hours or weeks or days trying to sweat over the perfect, in this case, lead magnet. So let's take a look at this particular campaign. Now, when the client came to us, they were like, hey, we only want a certain caliber buyer. And I'm like, okay, well, great. Let's take a look at that. So the cool thing about this is by default, it weeds out the wrong people. Because if you're going to say, hey, would you like to spend the next 5 hours actually reading something? No, I'd rather not spend the next 5 hours reading something. I don't want to read and I don't want to relive torque range. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. That's fine. So with that said, what we find, the highest caliber buyers will opt in to a book list. So this is one we've got for a client. He is high-level military. He works with the Pentagon, works with NFL teams. He has a certain caliber of buyer. If you're not coming to him with a 7 or 8 figure business, they can help you, but that's not their target market. So with this, we created the 2020 Leadership Culture and Strategy Reading List. Because we tied it into a time event, which is the coming of the new year, it all of a sudden is like, man, I got to get my crap together for this new year. So we tied into a time-based event. So we've got a reading strategy culture list. Now, the client also is an author, and I think he's sold probably about 50,000 books of one copy. So for him, he's obviously going to push his current book as well, which then, because they're telling me, if you read my book, you don't really have a problem stroking me a very large check. But if I've never read your book, you're just another consultant out there who may or may not be right for me. You're one of a million consultants. So what we ended up doing was creating a very simple and easy list. We're targeting leadership, culture, and strategy. Now let's go ahead and opt in for it. And we built this with Unbalanced. I like Unbalanced. You can do it with ClickFunnels, Lead Pages, Thrive Themes. It makes no difference.
And did you test this page? Or did it right out of the gate, did it perform the way it's performing?
Yeah, actually, out of the gate, we'll look at the stats. It had like a 20% conversion rate. We're doing small tweaks on it. So we're testing, adding testimonials. We've got testimonials from NFL team owners, but having to get the approval to use that is a slightly different animal. So let's go ahead and hit the reading list. And the whole thing is, the person who's going to be your reader, when they land on the page, we tried other ones in the past. Short, sweet does the job. These are the type of people who are very busy. They're looking at it going, okay, I'm making a decision immediately. Does this page resonate with me? I've got some guys, and even if it's a stock photo, we're testing stock photos versus other images. And let's go ahead and download the reading list. Click on this. Wait a second. Now, the thing that gets interesting is, how do we do this? If I said, go check your email right now, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, you'll get your reading list. As an executive or a busy CEO, I'm like, dude, you don't know how busy I am. We tested going to a full thank you page versus giving them everything right here. So let's open up the reading list. The reading list is also sent in a welcome email to the client or to the prospect. This is where it gets interesting. So we're pushing brand. We've got a quick welcome from the client. And at this point, you're like, okay, so who is this cat? You know, once you go through it, you're like, wait a second, this guy's really, really good. Book number 1 happens to be his book, The Leadership and the Warrior's Art, 50,000 plus sold. And in doing that, it allows me to take the best books, we put them on here. He then has the ability to contact these authors and say, hey, just want to give you a heads up. I've created a book list. We're promoting your book is number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So it's a quick way to at least generate an awareness with who that author is. And the thing that's really exciting about it, me as a user, because this is so incredibly targeted, you're going through here going, yeah, I'm going to head to Amazon. Go here, go here, go here. When we're building out that campaign, all I had to do was basically put in like the person who wrote the book, because that is what this book is about. So we hit the culture code. We hit lean in. We ended up going like Simon Sinek, Think Fast and Slow. These are the type of books that would just attract the right kind of person. More importantly, we've got our book list, and then we're going to go into a little bit further. We're going to give them articles. We're going to give them content. Inc. magazine, Harvard Business Review. We're not linking out to Joe Blow's blog that you've never heard of. These are very trustworthy experiences. So if you go to Inc., you're like, oh, makes sense. This is legit. This is real. And what we're saying is, this is who I am. These are the books I recommend, which are the highest level books. And here's some additional resources. By the way, all of them are super high level, Wall Street Journal, Inc. When someone goes through this, the client gets emails where people are like, oh, dude, thank you so much for this. It's nice to see somebody really doing their research. So they look at you as a time saver. You have immediately just removed a barrier that they have. They don't have enough time. So they go through this.
Did you create this, or did your client create this?
Client did this.
And how long do you think it took him?
I think they probably spent about 6.5 hours start to finish. Mm-hmm. Most of it he already knew from the books. Like one example,
sure.
And my take to them was, have a VA do this. But the client's like, no, nobody writes like me. So naturally they did it. What's interesting, let's go over here. Then once they opt in, we give them the list, and guess what? Let's go ahead and take them to something else where they can make that purchase. Because step number one is open up that PDF. It opens into a new window. We still have that landing page, that thank you page right behind it. And it doesn't quite feel like I am in your face. All these open into a new tab. When they open into the same tab, you go to the reading list and you forgot about this. You're done. When you go to the sales page, it's like, I can't believe that SOB. He tried to trick me. He said a reading list. I didn't get a stinking reading list. And now he's trying to sell me his insert name of product. By giving them that first thing first, we've lived up to our promise. We've given them everything we've said. And we then start driving sales for this book. Now, I think this book's got like 50,000. But the issue is this particular book isn't sold to like individuals as a general rule. Colleges, universities, the military, the Pentagon, that's who it sells to. It's not designed for individuals. It's designed for, somebody to make, I want 50, I want 100, I want 1,000 copies of the book. So with that, it's down, dirty, and fast. You could have the VA build out your reading list. You could have anybody knock it out.
And so let's go back to the stats for a second.
Okay.
And are you tracking? Tell us about the stats, and then also, if there have been any performance, if you know it, like behind on that sales letter, or how many are clicking over, and any results there as well. So obviously the first is a conversion rate.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and look at the ad first. Let's go ahead and see the ad that we're using to generate that. So let me find Ad Espresso. And let's go into all campaigns. So this is one that we initially started. We're trying to get consultations for the client. Mm-hmm. And one of those things where the client has an amazing reputation in certain circles. The minute you get out of these certain circles, I don't know who this guy is. Never heard of him before. Is he real? I don't know who he is. So our way to fix that, initially we started trying to say, hey, let's just run some campaigns where you are saying who you are, what you're going to do, and that you're just this amazing consultant. We ran those ads to just horrible results. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. The client's like, we're struggling. We're getting just hardly any clicks. I'm like, this ain't cutting it. So did a couple variations, and I'm like, we have to have something different. Just hitting people up with you saying, get a consultation is not going to cut it. So at that point, and this particular one's been going quite for about a month here. So at that point, we're like, okay, let's create a list of leadership culture. He's like, oh, I already have that. I'm like, dude, you're holding back on me. If you already have it, give it to me. So with that, we ended up creating these campaigns, and I'm like, let's run like an extremely small budget, because I just want to figure out, will people even give you their name or email? That's all we want to do. Will they even give you the email? So started this particular one out. Now, the conversion numbers are skewed. Some of these just haven't tracked correctly. Like this one didn't track correctly. This one didn't track correctly. This one is tracking correctly on that. So I'm going to just use that because this one is valid, and I know this part we can say is valid. Okay. So we're saying, who would be interested in culture and leadership? And is the average marketer interested in that? Probably not. Is the business owner into that? If you're drowning trying to keep your business above work, probably not. That's not valid. So we started looking at who are the people who who are selling to that market and who are the people on the reading list. So Sheryl Sandberg on the reading list, Stephen Covey, Malcolm Gladwell, Lean In, Seth Godin, Jim Collins.
Okay, right. So you're using the names of the authors who are on the list to guide the targeting as well, because the people that read those books are part of the target audience.
Correct, exactly. So put these in, and I'm like, okay, well, we throw these in. Let's just see how it works. Let's just do this for an initial test for the client, because we struggled getting people to say, give me a consultation. Just struggled with that consultation aspect. So the client's telling me that his prospects are typically 40-year-olds. They're going to be corporate executives. They're going to download this reading list. They may have every book on that list, or may have none of the books on the list. Doesn't make a difference. We don't know that for a fact. So we crank this thing up. I'm like, I'm looking for a lead. We only have to track, are these people even giving you the time of day?
Right.
That's the first step. Looking at the age brackets, breaking down, not really concerned about the cost, any of this, because their engagements are like massive. So he's not freaked out over, if you had a $5,000, consultation, that would be considered extremely small on their part.
Right.
So we ran these down, click-throughs, let's just say 2% is average CTR across the board. Running through these, I'm like, okay, they're not bad, they're not great, but the cost per click is so incredibly cheap right now that we can make up for it with a low converting page. I'm going to make the page convert better, but at this point, because the target market, and we can go into this audience size in a minute.
Yeah, and one consult could pay for, I mean, it seems like these are like, 5-figure and plus engagements, right? So they could be running this all day at budgets of $100 or $200 a day, and if they get one client out of it at the end of the year, they're probably still close to break even, if not ahead.
Exactly. And from their standpoint, he's been retired and he's just getting his feet into this, and they're like freaked out. They're like, we're putting people on our MailChimp list. I'm like, yeah, we're putting people on MailChimp. And they didn't even have a follow-up, because their expectation was, well, nobody's gonna. They're just not. This is just a new world for them.
Right.
Now, do you think desktop or mobile?
I would think mobile personally, but I imagine that it's not, because you're asking me.
We'll find out.
Generally, mobile is much more prevalent, but.
Yes. And this is one where most people think it's B2B. Everybody's going to be on a desktop. Maybe in a different world, but we're seeing it's all mobile. iPhone,
90% of my traffic is, so it makes sense.
And so they were thinking desktop. I'm like, no, desktop has given us the least amount of anything.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so this is beginning to, for them, they're like, oh my gosh, this is beginning to take action. And placement, there again, hands down, in theory, I'm gonna go ahead and sort this. In theory, they're like, well, people see this on my desktop at their office while they're working 9 to 5. No, as a matter of fact, the app in the newsfeed is generating the majority of this. And from the clicks, they're like, wow, let's take it a step further. Is there a certain region that
well, go ahead.
Is there a certain region that would be giving you the most leads? I was thinking New York, like typically it's going to be New York, Florida, Texas, California. And instead we're like, this isn't making sense. So this started getting interesting. Like, why do I have and we don't have a lot of statistical data in this particular one, but the client's like, Florida, I go to Florida to retire. I'm not going to Florida for work, but there's a massive amount of people there. 30% opt in on that particular one, 12 leads, 40 clicks. They're happy. They're extremely happy. So all we do at this point.
Go ahead. Sorry, Charles.
So all this point, we're driving to the opt-in page, and they're like connecting with them, doing the one-on-one stuff, because they're not quite used to doing this at a mass scale, so I can't crank it up yet. They're still tweaking their system.
Got it. And so so I've tracked you all the way through. So we're talking about like how to create a very easy to create lead magnet that will get the highest quality of prospects, and that by doing it by a book list, you can also then target the names of all the authors like in Facebook, which can get you a very cheap, cost per click. You're going to very targeted people, but these are like higher level people. So generally when you're targeting higher level people, it costs you more, but not in this case. And by giving away that book list, you've positioned yourself as kind of an authority in the niche. And then the follow-up campaign can really then begin to bond and move the person towards a consult. Do you have any data yet on that part of the equation? Like as far as people, are they getting some consults from this process right now?
That they won't let me kind of go into, but I will tell, I can't give you the exact numbers, but I will tell you they're booking calls, and they're extremely happy with the booking calls.
Okay, so this is a great strategy then. This is a great strategy for those of you who are not using this. This is a great type of landing page to be running traffic towards because of the price, because of the engagement level, because of the quality of the prospect, and because of the ease of being able to put something like this together, which, Charles had said the client spent about 6 hours on. Not too many great lead magnets can you make in 6 hours that will resonate with a high level audience. So this is a fantastic tip and a great strategy to use. And so I really appreciate that, Charles. And is there anything that you want to add on this that you haven't said yet before we wrap up this tip?
I think you've nailed it pretty much. It's a simple, easy way to target a high-level prospect, and you're getting the authority because you're recommending all these books. Gives you a great opportunity to get cheap leads, inexpensive leads. They could go to webinars, sales pages, consultation forums, anything, but it's a quick way to get leads.
Well, that's awesome. And this is definitely what the whole newsletter is about. This is a winner, and Charles is inviting you to steal it. So steal Charles's winner, put this in place, and be impressed by the results. So I really appreciate it, Charles. Thanks for giving us this strategy, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Have a good one.